Hey guys, Todd here. Today we're going to install the Amp Research PowerStep Xtreme running boards on this 2019 F-150. For this installation, I'll be using Allen wrenches, a socket set, a tape measure, drill and drill bits, electrician's tool, diagonal clippers, a utility knife, and a heat gun. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all our latest content. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first thing we want to do before we get going is assemble our motor to our bracket. Now, once you pull all the tape off, make sure that everything is still lined up. This cover right here, if it comes apart, make sure that tab goes into this slot and make sure everything is still lined up top. When you take the tape off of the motor, you'll also have some hardware that's taped in there. You've got 3 Allen head bolts along with some flat washers. I've already got those assembled together. Next, what we're going to do is extend our bracket out all the way. Now, you'll see that gear turning as I extend that bracket. It's important to understand that that gear has to mesh with the gear on the motor. So when we line things up with the motor and the bracket, we may have to move that bracket just a little bit in order for everything to drop into place. The top of the motor is going to be facing kind of where the top of the bracket is. We're going to take our 3 bolts that are already kind of assembled together with the washers and put them in there finger tight for right now. There is some thread locking compound, so you're not going to be able to put them all the way in finger tight. But just, get them to where the threads are started. Then once those threads are started, go ahead and tighten them down with a 4mm Allen wrench to 36 inch-pounds. All right, repeat the same on the other 3 brackets. Okay, so we're going to start on the driver's side. I'm actually at the rear bracket location. So this is the very back of the cab underneath on the rocker panel. We're going to find 3 threaded studs from the factory. What we're going to do is find our bracket that coordinates with that. Now, this is the rear bracket, so it's got a hole on the side where the stud is. If the hole is on this side, that's the front bracket. So what we're going to do is hang that on our 3 factory studs. Then we're going to use our supplied hardware and fasten this down. I'm going to start with this one over here because once these are all fastened down, if you do this one last, you actually won't be able to fit the nut onto the stud. So we're going to pull that away a little bit so we can get that nut started and then tighten everything down with a 13mm. All right, repeat the same thing on the front bracket, same install, just a mirror image. Okay, now I've got the board. I'm going to line that board up to the bracket. You're going to notice we've got an aluminum block that slides back and forth inside the board in a channel. What we're going to do is line up that block to our bracket. We've got a couple of holes here that are going to line up to these 2 holes. So the board is actually going to drop down into that bracket. We just have to line it up. And it drops down into place. Just like so. Now what we're going to do is take our provided hardware and get it started in the 2 holes. Again, this does have some thread locking compound on it. Make sure they are engaged into the threads. And before you tighten it down, we're going to need to do a couple of things. Number 1, we're going to go ahead and line up the block to the front bracket. So I'm going to do that now and then come back and show you how to adjust the board front to back. So what we're going to do is run a tape measure from the end of the linkage out to the end of the board. Now the end of the board should be at 11 inches, so I need to move this board towards the front of the vehicle. It helps while you're moving the board to wiggle it back and forth as you push on it. And there we go. Once we've got 11 inches from the linkage to the back of the board, we can go ahead and tighten down our hardware to 10 foot-pounds. And we'll tighten down the front bracket as well. Okay, now one thing to point out, this truck does not have a manual parking brake. It actually has an electric parking brake, so we don't have to modify anything or move a bracket. If this had a manual parking brake, we would have to move that brake line bracket at the rear up a little bit. Just refer to your instructions for that. Okay, now this is our wire harness. Now it was all bundled up into one roll. What I did is I unrolled it. The shorter side I set to this side, the longer side I set to this side. The longer side I've got is going to go to the driver's side, shorter side goes to the passenger side. What we want to do is open up our fuse holder and pull the fuse out and set it to the side because we don't want it hooked up right now. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our controller, and this is going to be inserted down into here and tied off to this conduit. It's going to be kind of hard to see on video, but that's where it's going to be. We also want to go ahead and attach our 9-pin connector to our controller. Now we want to be very careful to make sure everything lines up properly because we don't want it to go backwards. So if you look at the odd-shaped, make sure they're lined up to the odd-shaped inputs. Push that all the way in till it clicks. And also hook up the 8-pin connector. All right, we're going to attach it with the 2 supplied 11-inch wire ties. Okay, let me go ahead and show you what we've got going on. This part of the harness is attached to the battery on positive and the negative. I still do not have the fuse attached in here. We're not going to do that until the very end. I've got the 2 other parts of the harnesses. The short one coming up over here, that's going to go back behind the passenger side wheel well. The longer one is longer because it has to reach across the other side of the engine compartment. I've got that routed across, and that is ready to be routed down on the driver's side behind the wheel well. Okay, so what we've got here is our wire harness comes down from the wheel well, comes over this way. We've got it routed over top of our first motor. We've got the clip that's going to plug into the first motor. I'm going to go ahead and plug that in now. We've also got a couple of purple wires. This is the only thing that's different from the passenger side. So driver's side's got the 2 purple wires, passenger side does not. We're going to go ahead and pull it past the motor. We're going to continue pulling our wire harness over top of our body mount bolt on the frame cup, and then we're going to stretch that over to the other motor and then plug it in. All right, once we have our motors plugged in, we're going to go ahead and install our LED light banks. You're going to have 4 of them, 2 on each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where it's going to meet the pinch weld. I'm going to show you how to do one of them, all 4 of them installed the exact same way. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mark the spot where I'm going to drill a hole. And I'm going to start with a pilot hole from this side and then from the other side. Because the drill bit's too long, I'm going to use a 9/32 and drill it the rest of the way through. All right, now I went ahead and opened up the door to give myself a little bit more clearance. I'll go ahead and take my 9/32 drill bit and go through. All right, next we want to go ahead and remove any kind of burrs. Once you've done that, go ahead and install the grommets you've been given for it. We're just going to fit the grommets in. I like to lubricate my grommets with a little bit of grease. They go through a lot easier that way. Okay, so once you've got that pushed through, make sure it looks like that on both sides. If you have to go to the other side and use a little pick tool to pull it through on both sides, you can do that. And then also what I would do is push the pick tool through the hole just to make sure that it's free of any kind of obstructions. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take our LED light bank. We're going to take the wires, we're going to go from the outside and push them through the grommet. And now on the other side, we're going to go ahead and take some isopropyl alcohol, rub down the rocker panel, peel away the 3M tape, and stick the LED light bank to the rocker panel. Now press down nice and tight for about 10 seconds, and that'll help the 3M to bond very well. All right, now we're going to go ahead and connect it with a harness. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip about a 1/4 inch away from the insulation on our harness end, pull off the insulation from the LED light bank, and we're going to connect them with heat shrink butt connectors. All right, now I'm just going to use a heat gun and seal this up. All right, now just go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other 3 light banks. Okay, now with the driver's side door open, we're going to go ahead and pull up the sill plate. That just pops right up. And now we can take and pull the carpet back. We'll pull it clear from back here. And then we're going to expose this grommet. That grommet's just going to pop right out. This gives us a hole directly to the bottom of the truck, and we can run those purple wires from before up through that hole. Next, we're going to make a little X mark through the grommet to run the wires through there. And then we can reinstall the grommet into the hole. Okay, now in your kit, you're also going to have an OBD2 harness. It's got a couple of purple wires coming out of it. So we're going to take the purple wires from our main harness and we're going to attach them to the purple wires on the OBD2 harness using our Posi Splice connectors. Let me show you how those go together. So I've already stripped away a little bit of the insulation from the harness on the purple wire main harness. We're going to unscrew that piece, slide it over top of the harness wire. We've got just a little bit of that wire coming through, and that connector is going to thread into that and then make connection. Make sure it's straight. All right, now that's nice and connected. We're going to unscrew this side, take our OBD2. That's already stripped away as well. We're going to slide the threaded portion over top of that, and then thread that together. Repeat the same for the other one. All right, now we're going to run this up through this pillar and then plug this into our OBD2 port and tie off any remaining wire we've got just hanging out. All right, so I'm just going to plug this into the OBD2 port. All right, now go ahead and replace the door sill. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and replace the fuse, then test the operation by opening and closing the doors. Okay, let's go ahead and test it out. Now we should have a 3-second delay. Perfect. Now, if you close the driver's side door and the passenger side board retracts, that's perfectly fine. That just means we have our Posi Splice connectors swapped. Just go back to your OBD2 port, undo the Posi Splice, swap them, and reconnect them, and it will correct that situation. Guys, if you found this video to be helpful, make sure you give us a thumbs up. If you want to know more about the product, check the link in the description below. And as always, if you have any questions, call the experts or visit us online.